Well, we're back. Kevin McCarthy became the first speaker to be voted out of his job yesterday when 8 Republicans. Shouldn't we have a reality show? We should talk about what we...
If you could see the commercial break.
Oh, if you could only see. When he joined with Democrats to oust him, while McCarthy had the backing of much of his conference, 96%, he said last night he would not run for the speakership again. So it's on, this race for speaker. Not anything going to happen until Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. Let's bring in 2024 presidential candidate Christie. He's a 2-term governor of New Jersey and a former U.S. attorney. Good to see you, Governor.
Good to be here, guys.
Always good to see you. How's wife? She's good?
She's great. She's watching. I'm confident.
I'm confident.
It's her favorite show. She watches every morning.
God bless that.
Every morning.
Can you give me anything positive, any silver lining of that excrement show?
No.
From yesterday.
No, I can't. But, look, it just shows, it gives people more of a concern about our party being a governing party. And that's bad for all of us who are running for president right now, right? And look, Kevin's mistake right in the beginning was taking the job under those circumstances.
The only way to get it.
I said to him at the time, you should tell him, go find somebody else. Because there would have been no one else who could have gotten 218.
It was always one person. It was always one person. But usually you had a margin of 30 or 40 in your party.
Well, we can thank Donald Trump for that.
That's what, so trace it back to that. It wasn't the one person thing. It was that there were only, the margin was, because there was no red wave because all the MAGA candidates, extreme MAGA.
You heard from Matt Rosendale,
another one,
who said he was praying for them not to get a big majority so that he could be more influential. I mean, so you got these guys who yesterday were literally just trying to raise money for themselves, get on TV. That's all they care about. And by the way, the creator of all of this is Trump.
Right.
I mean, he set this type of politics in motion.
Started with Purdue in Georgia and said to McConnell, I hope you lose, so we lost the Senate.
That's right. And
Republicans, I should just start saying we. No, but Republicans lost the Senate.
Yeah, they did. And Trump did that because he didn't care. Because he only cares about himself.
And then the 2022 midterms, lost. That didn't happen.
Well,
so you got that.
Look, when you put candidates up like they did in New Hampshire for the Senate, like they did in Pennsylvania with Dr. Oz, who's a guy I've known for a long time, was on both of my finance committees when I ran for governor. But you know why? Because he's from New Jersey, so you're running for Senate in Pennsylvania. I spoke to my mother-in-law who at the time was 94 years old. She's now 96. And I asked her, so who are you voting for in the primary? And she said, I'm voting for McCormick. And I said, so why'd you sign McCormick? She goes, oh, Christopher, Dr. Oz is from New Jersey. Right? So, I mean, sometimes people get too cute and too smart for their own good. People understand basics. And she understood that she's lived in Pennsylvania her whole life. She wanted a Republican senator that actually was from Pennsylvania, not somebody who's from New Jersey.
Chris, what does this all mean to the business community? Because we've been trying to mull that around. Just the potential for a government shutdown, the inability to find compromise, the inability to actually govern and get things done, no matter which party you're looking at this point.
I don't think there'll be a shutdown, Becky, because McCarthy showed that you can prevent that from happening by, the folks, the 210 in the House on the Republican side, who were ready to vote with Democrats to have a continuing resolution for 45 days. I'm not worried as much about a shutdown, but what I am worried about is you look at our long-term economic issues that we have to deal with. We have to deal with the debt. And in that, I don't agree with Gates because I don't think he has any core on that. But my point is, you need to have a stable majority to be able to do that. What happens in Ukraine? What's Zelensky saying when he wakes up this morning, right? What are our allies in Europe saying? Let's remember something. The last time we turned our back on a shooting war in Europe, it cost us 500,000 American lives ultimately. And I don't understand these people who are making Ukraine this kind of dividing line on this stuff. And it's going to hurt our relationships around the world, and it's going to wind up costing American lives ultimately either in Europe or in Asia.
I got a question for you. So in the 6 o'clock hour, we were talking about Trump. And Joe says to me, we were talking about TDS and this idea of, he says, deplorables and all of this. What does this whole situation mean for you, for your election, and the idea that there are a strong base of support still for President Trump. Why is that? What is that? And how do you rationalize this situation?
Look, I think there's three elements to the Trump support, right? There's an element of folks who they never really involved in politics much before, didn't get involved in voting much before. He spoke to them, their anger, and his anger is something they can relate to, and they're rock solid for him, and probably wouldn't support anybody else, right? There's an element of folks who it's just purely tribal. They feel like they have to keep the jersey on all the time, and if they say that they even have some concerns with Trump, that means they're for Biden. They can't be for Biden. And so they just put that away. Then the third element is the people who are just scared because they look at it and say, I guess I have to be for Trump because he's ahead in all the polls and there's no alternative to that. I think that last element of people will break away from him.
And that's where you think your opportunity is.
Correct. Yep.
But clearly, even Matt Gaetz thinks politically for him that there is an audience for what he's doing. He thinks that he can become the governor of Florida potentially on the back of this kind of thing.
No, it's a fiscal. All 8 of those people were hiding behind the $33 trillion. That's all they said. They said it again and again. And they got a point. But
Florida's a red state now, Andrew. And so will Gaetz win a gubernatorial primary? Like, who knows? But look, Matt Gaetz is not a whole heck of a lot different than Ron DeSantis. If you look at the things that Ron DeSantis did and Ron DeSantis said when he was in the House, he was not a whole lot more liked than Matt Gaetz is in that caucus.
Matt Gaetz has some serious ethical investigations and potential illegal activities.
Look, and I think you're right, Becky, and I think that Gaetz looks at this as the best defense is a good offense.
Right.
And just keep pushing and saying that he's setting this up so that when they do come back, if they do, with some serious ethics charges against him, he's going to say, oh, well, it's all rigged. We've heard this before. It's all rigged. It's because I went against McCarthy. Now they're going after me. But I think that if you continue to look at the early states, in the polls that have a decent amount of sample, Trump is below 40%, both in Iowa and in New Hampshire. That's a bad sign for him. Imagine, Andrew, in the Democratic primary, if there was a poll that showed Biden under 40%.
And why isn't there? That's the other. If you want to do whataboutism, I mean, you talk about, not staring a problem right in the face, which is Republicans with Donald Trump. Well, Democrats have nothing but Joe Biden, and with Kamala Harris waiting in the wings. Well, tell me how they're rationalizing that without trying to figure out.
Well, the people who have to answer those questions are folks like Gavin Newsom and J.B. Pritzker and Cory Booker and others.
Josh Shapiro, or the Colorado guy.
Right?
No, but look, the truth is they don't want to run. They don't want to run because they're too fearful that they're going to split a party at a time when they are looking at the GOP and looking at Trump. If Trump was not the leader, I think you would have a completely different situation on the Democratic side. I think people would be very willing to split that whole situation up and run against him.
Their premise is flawed, though, Andrew.
I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying, but that is the conceit.
I think their premise is flawed, though, because, you and I were at a similar meeting recently, and I heard there were a number of Democrats there, and they're all scared to death that Biden's not going to make it, that he's not going to physically get there. And then the only thing standing between Donald Trump from their perspective and the White House is an 82-year-old Joe Biden who on most days doesn't seem to be able to put 8 coherent sentences together in a row.
Words.
Right? I mean, it is incredible. It's one of the reasons I'm running is because you can't have these two people be the choice. And everybody says, well, I don't know how you're going to do it. I don't know how you're going to thread the needle. I don't know how you're going to win this thing. Well, the alternative to me is unacceptable. So if the alternative is unacceptable and you feel like you have something to offer, it's not acceptable for you to stand on the sidelines and just carp and complain like a lot of people that we all know who come here and whether it's from this business or whether it's from Wall Street or whether it's from other parts of business in this country who all say the same things to me, but then they're all waiting on the sidelines I want to see how this plays out.
But
I
is
saw
part
this
of the-
8 years ago.
Is part
You
of
know
the
how it plays
problem too
out.
many people running, though? Like the problem being, if there was one alternative, maybe there would be
We got
more
to
of a
pick. We got to pick
coalition.
the alternative.
The only way that you get one alternative is for someone to actually prove they can get votes, Becky. And look, everybody says there's too many people. I want you to remember something. On October 4th of 2015, there were 16 Republican candidates in the race.
Yeah.
Today, for practical purposes, there are 6 or 7.
But there wasn't an incumbent or a former incumbent.
But you know what? He was, if you remember back to this time now, October of 15,
Right.
he was clearly ahead and significantly ahead. When he first got into June, he was not. But by the time we'd gotten through 2 debates, by the time we'd gotten through the debate that we had, the first one and then the second one at the Reagan Library, Trump was the clear front runner. He was center stage, and he was double digits ahead of either Jeb Bush or Scott Walker. And by the way, remember, by this time, 8 years ago, Walker had dropped out. And he was the front runner in Iowa 6 months earlier. So my point to people is there aren't too many candidates yet. And then when you talk to all these other folks, they want the field to thin. Yeah. Well, then do something. I've said to any number of people, even if you don't pick me, pick somebody. But these folks want to sit on the sidelines because they're all afraid of being wrong. Guess what? If you look at, let's just take the Wall Street industry. If you take a look at their ability to predict who is going to win, they stink. They never could pick who's going to win. It was President Jeb Bush. It was President Scott Walker. It was President Rick Perry. I mean, come on. So if I say to them, decide who you want to be president, who you think is the best, most competent, most responsible person to be president. And then there's some of the few people who actually have the resources to give that person a chance. Mm-hmm. But everybody wants to be careful. I'm tired of everybody being careful. I'm out here not being careful. I'm the only one on that stage that didn't raise my hand and say I'd support a convicted felon, and I got booed by 5,000 people in Milwaukee. I don't care, because it's right. Really, we want a convicted felon to be president of the United States? And then you had some jokers on the Hill yesterday saying, make him speaker. Who are these people?
Who should be speaker, very quickly?
Look, I like Scalise. I've always liked Steve Scalise. I don't know whether he's up to it from a health perspective. I spoke to him when he first was diagnosed. He's a friend, and he was focused on making sure he gets well, which is what he should. Only he knows what his prognosis is.
Jordan is
do it.
Total pro-Trump.
Who?
Jordan.
Oh, Jordan. Well, look, yes and no.
I like him.
But Jordan also stood with McCarthy.
Yeah, he did.
And voted for McCarthy.
He's a scrapper,
and stood with
too.
him.
He's a hard ass.
I think the most likely 2 candidates are Scalise or Emmer, because they're in leadership already. They've put, a lot of chits with these folks.
Pretty low key. I saw him speak.
Tom Emmer?
Yeah.
I'll tell you this, though. Emmer might not be bad to have a speaker from Minnesota, from a blue state, with somebody who actually understands how to get things done as a Republican rather than someone who is only red state focused. We need to put together a coalition and recruit candidates.
McCarthy was from California. That ain't blue enough for you?
You know what, though? That's almost ridiculous, because then you really have to be tribal when you're from that blue state. It's like being from New Jersey.
Well, Bakersfield.
It's bad. You've got to get over it, okay? Next case.
Look, I asked you for a silver lining. You said, no.
Well, there's no silver lining on this.
Lining for what happened.
No silver lining on the speaker stuff. But look, we've got a race going on. Let's get to it. Let's go and try to win the damn thing. I mean, that's the only way everyone's going to say, if I go ahead and beat him in New Hampshire,
yeah,
there are going to be people going, oh, I knew it. I could feel it. I knew it. Well, let's make it happen.
Well, we had you here first, so you.
Well, you're going to be among the smartest people in America.
You'll have us to thank.
Because you had me here.
You'll have us to thank, Governor Christie.
Nice to see you, sir.
Thank you.
Always good to be here. Even though Joe is just a bummer.
No, I'm not a bummer.
You're a bummer. You are.
Really? So this happened yesterday, and we have 2024 with those 2 candidates to look forward to. That's what I said earlier. Does that put you in a good mood?
That's why I'm running. It doesn't put me in a good mood,
All right,
Joe.
good luck.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Governor. When we come back on the other side of this, mortgage rates closing in